It started like any other day. The sun hung lazily in the sky above a small suburban neighborhood. Kids were playing in yards, sprinklers misted onto freshly cut grass, and birds chirped as if nothing in the world could go wrong. But for 17-year-old Alana Pierce, that calm was about to shatter. Alana was bright, respectful, and driven. An honor roll student and member of the debate team, she dreamed of becoming a lawyer like her mother had been before passing. That afternoon, she was simply walking home from the corner store, one earbud in, backpack slung over one shoulder, and a bottle of iced tea in hand. She didn't expect trouble. Not here. Not in broad daylight. Not in the neighborhood her father had chosen because it was supposed to be safe. But two police officers parked on the opposite side of the road had already noticed her. One of them, Officer Branning, nudged his partner and muttered something. Alana couldn't hear what was said, but when they crossed the street directly toward her, her heartbeat quickened. She'd done nothing wrong, nothing at all, but the looks on their faces were sharp and serious. "Hey, you!" one officer called out. "Come here," Alana paused, confused. "Me?" "Yeah, you. What's in the bag?" "It's just snacks and a drink," she replied, holding it up. "From the 7-Eleven. You can check the receipt." That's when things shifted. Branning narrowed his eyes. "Why are you acting nervous?" "I'm not," Alana said softly, trying to stay calm. "I just don't understand why I'm being stopped." "Are you resisting?" the second cop snapped, stepping closer. "No, sir. I just want to go home." What happened next unfolded faster than she could process. Branning suddenly grabbed her by the arm. The bottle fell and shattered. She stumbled, shocked. Before she could react, he twisted her wrist behind her back and shoved her toward the sidewalk. "Stop resisting," he barked, though she wasn't moving. "I'm not," she cried out, her voice cracking. "Please, you're hurting me." She could feel the sting of the pavement scraping her knees. Her bag spilled open beside her, gum, a phone charger, and a paperback novel scattering across the ground. A small crowd began to gather. A woman filming from across the street gasped. Audibly, Alana was now pinned beneath both officers, her cheek against the hot sidewalk, her arm in pain, knees bleeding. One of them knelt into her back as the other tried to force cuffs onto her wrists. Through the panic, she managed to tilt her face enough to see her phone just inches away. Her hand, trembling, reached toward it. The screen lit up. She hit one. Number just one, and the call connected. "Dad," she whispered into the mic. "They're going to kill me." It wasn't just any dad. Alana's father was Director Marshall Pierce, the current head of the FBI, but the officers didn't know that. To them, she was just another black teenager in the wrong place, with the wrong attitude, and probably up to no good. They didn't see her GPA. They didn't know her community service hours or her full scholarship to an Ivy League prep program. They didn't care that she was simply walking home, but that one call, it was about to change everything. The line stayed open. On the other end, in a secure government office hundreds of miles away, Director Pierce stood frozen in place, listening to the faint sounds of his daughter crying, muffled voices, and the unmistakable tension of chaos. A chill ran through him. Back on the street, Alana was now being forced upright. Her lip was bleeding, hair matted to her forehead. She saw the woman across the street still recording. A teenage boy nearby, likely no older than she was, stepped forward and shouted, "She didn't do anything! Back off!" One officer shouted at him. Another bystander, an elderly man in a lawn chair, shook his head and muttered, "This isn't right, not at all." And that's when the patrol car radio crackled, loud, urgent. "This is dispatch, stand by. Be advised, subject's father is Director Marshall Pierce of the FBI. Repeat, stand down immediately." For a split second, everything went still. The officer holding Alana blinked as if the words hadn't registered. Then the realization hit. Both officers slowly released her, eyes wide. Alana, still shaking, reached for her phone. "Dad?" she whispered. "I'm here," his voice said firmly. "Stay calm, help is coming." And it was. Helicopters would arrive within the hour. Federal agents in black SUVs would shut down the street. The two officers would be suspended pending an internal review. Media vans would line the block by morning. But in that moment, the damage had already been done. Alana sat on the curb, hands in her lap, heart racing. The whole neighborhood watched. No one knew what would happen next, but everyone felt the shift. Somewhere down the street, a little boy on a tricycle had stopped riding. A mother held her child's hand a little tighter, and across town, a judge who had known Alana's family for years was already dialing numbers, demanding explanations. And as the day turned into night, the story spread. But this wasn't the first time someone underestimated a young black voice. And it wouldn't be the last. Just 2 weeks before this incident, in the same city, another young black teen, 17-year-old Jamal Bryant, had done something entirely different. He had been riding a crowded city bus when he noticed a pregnant white woman standing awkwardly, clutching the overhead rail, visibly exhausted. Without hesitation, Jamal stood up and offered her his seat. She looked surprised, almost skeptical. "You sure?" she asked. "Yeah," Jamal nodded with a warm smile. "I've got strong legs." She sat down slowly. "Thank you, young man." For most people, that would have been the end of it. But as she exited the bus a few stops later, she slipped a folded note into Jamal's hand. "Open it later," she whispered. Inside was a handwritten message. "You reminded me there's still good in this world. I'm the CEO of a scholarship foundation. Expect a call. I want to help you." Jamal had no idea his one act of kindness would lead to a full scholarship, mentorship, and a life-changing opportunity that would rewrite his future. Two very different stories, two black teens. One beaten for no reason, one rewarded for a quiet act of decency. Both revealing the truth about how quickly assumptions are made, and how fragile and powerful moments can be. But Alana's story wasn't over. Not yet. As the street buzzed with sirens, cameras, and questions, Alana looked up and saw two new officers arrive. Calm, respectful, careful, they approached her gently. One offered a bottle of water. The other held out a hand, not to arrest her, but to help her up. Still, she hesitated. Because when you've been treated like a suspect while doing nothing wrong, it stays with you. And just when she thought the worst was over, a dark sedan pulled up across the road. The door opened. A man in a dark suit stepped out, broad shoulders, steel gray eyes, jaw clenched tight. Alana's breath caught in her throat. "Dad." But before she could say more, something unexpected happened. The officers who had tackled her didn't just apologize. They didn't just step aside, they panicked, and one of them ran. That's when everything changed again. Rain began to fall lightly over the city, streaking down the windows of the safe house as Alana stared into the darkness outside. It had been 2 days since the attack, but it felt like a lifetime. She hadn't been allowed to return home. Not yet. Agents rotated in and out of the building like clockwork, whispers of escalation, surveillance breach, and targeted family floating just beyond the corners of her hearing. No one said it out loud, but she knew this wasn't over. Her father hadn't slept much. Dark circles grew under his eyes. His phone rang constantly. Alana watched him disappear into sealed rooms, exchanging information with people she'd only seen in movies. She never imagined she'd be part of something like this. A teenager caught in a quiet war. But that's what it was beginning to feel like. One of the agents may have stayed close, never more than a room away. But even Maya had started to seem nervous, checking windows twice, speaking only in hushed tones. And it wasn't just about safety anymore, it was the unknown. Something big was happening behind the scenes. Something even the FBI hadn't fully pieced together. Later that evening, Alana overheard two agents talking outside her door. They're not just trying to intimidate. They want to make a statement. Could be retaliation, could be recruitment. But they want the director to suffer first. Still think the girl wasn't the main target? There was silence, and then, "She is now." Those words echoed in Alana's head. She knew too much now. And whoever had orchestrated the attack, they hadn't counted on her surviving. Worse, they hadn't expected the director to respond so quickly. Now the timeline had changed. Now the stakes were different. That night, her father walked in with a file. He sat on the edge of the couch, placed it in front of her, and opened it. Inside were photos taken from a security camera. Blurry, black and white, but unmistakable. The man in the hoodie, the one who'd been watching the scene from his car the day she was attacked. Alana leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "I've seen him," she whispered. Her father nodded. "He's been on our radar before, real name unknown. We've tracked him through multiple cities, disguises, always. Just out of reach. But we believe he's linked to an underground network that targets law enforcement families." She looked up, heart racing. "So, you think they've been following me?" "For weeks," he said quietly. "Maybe longer." Her hands trembled. As she flipped to the next page, it was a map. Pins and notes were scattered across at locations she'd recently visited. The corner store, her school, even the debate tournament she'd competed in last month. They've been documenting my schedule. "They were waiting for the right moment," her father said. "And they almost got it? But why now?" She asked again, the question haunting her. What made them move? He looked at her and his expression darkened. "Because 3 days before they attacked you, I authorized a classified operation that dismantled one of their communication networks. We seized hard drives, names, files. But someone slipped through. Someone warned them." Alana's breath caught. "You think there's a leak inside the agency?" "I know there is," he said. "And they're close, too close." Suddenly, the lights flickered. A second passed. Then another. A low alarm began to beep. Her father stood instantly, already pulling his phone from his belt. "Get to the secure room," he said sharply. Maya appeared in the doorway, hand on her holster. "We've lost external feeds. Power might be compromised. Could be a test or a breach." "Move her now," he ordered. Alana's heartbeat thundered. She was rushed down a narrow hallway as Maya unlocked a reinforced door and waved her inside. The room was cold, built like a vault, with nothing but metal walls, a panic phone, and a bench. The door shut behind her. She was alone. The silence inside was deafening. Minutes passed. Maybe 10, maybe more. She couldn't be sure, but then she heard something, a sharp, metallic thud. Then another, footsteps, but not rushing, careful, slow outside. The vault. Her breath froze in her chest. Her eyes darted to the red emergency phone, but before she could reach it, the lights in the vault flickered again. Then darkness. For a split second, there was nothing, and then a soft sound. Like static. Her skin crawled. A voice came through the small intercom speaker overhead. "You shouldn't have survived." It wasn't her father. It wasn't Maya. Alana stood slowly, back against the wall, staring at the speaker like it might come to life. The voice returned, calm, measured. "You weren't supposed to call anyone. But now you've seen too much, and you've become useful." She didn't speak. Her mouth was dry. "We don't want to hurt you," the voice continued. "But your father, he's made enemies. Powerful ones. And we're not done with him. Yet." Then silence. No footsteps, no warning. Just quiet. Suddenly the emergency phone buzzed loudly. She jumped. It was her father's voice, tight and strained. "Lana, don't say anything. Listen carefully." She didn't breathe. "We're not alone in the building. Agents are engaging someone now. Stay in that room. Do not move. I'm coming for you." The call cut. Alana dropped the phone and backed into the farthest corner. Her body trembled, but her mind was clearer than ever. She knew now, this wasn't just about revenge. This was a message. Whoever these people were, they weren't just attacking law enforcement. They were building something, testing how far they could go. And she had become their warning shot. Outside the vault, a door slammed, and someone screamed the asterisk moral of the story. Never judge someone by their appearance, or assume their power by their silence. The quietest voice can belong to the most powerful person, and the smallest act of injustice can lead to the biggest reckoning. Always choose kindness, respect, and fairness, because the world sees and the tables can turn in an instant. Alana's heart pounded louder than the sirens still echoing in the distance. She couldn't believe her eyes. Her father was here. The director of the FBI, a man usually surrounded by layers of security and bureaucracy, was standing in the middle of a quiet neighborhood street, eyes locked onto his daughter with a fury she'd never seen in him before. He didn't run to her. He walked with purpose, his presence alone parting the small crowd. Everyone knew something serious was unfolding, but most didn't know how deep it went. Alana stood slowly, her legs trembling. Her shirt was still stained with dirt and blood, her wrist swollen, face scraped. Her father reached her and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice low but tense. She nodded, but her lips quivered. "I think, so." Behind them, the officer who had pinned her down, the one who'd barked, resisting like a weapon, was already backing away. The panic in his eyes was undeniable. He had no idea who she was when he grabbed her. Now, faced with the full weight of what he'd done, he looked like he wanted to disappear. The second officer, Officer Jenkins, looked stiff, like he was forcing himself to breathe. "Sir," he said, trying to stay composed. "We didn't." "No, that's the problem," Director Pierce cut in coldly. "You didn't care to know." Jenkins opened his mouth to speak, but the words never came. Before anything else could unfold, two unmarked black SUVs pulled up behind the police cruiser. Out stepped several men in black suits, federal agents. They were calm, professional, but their movements were sharp and focused. They scanned the area, spoke briefly into earpieces, and moved toward the officers. The tone on the street shifted from confusion to dread. Alana could feel everyone watching. Neighbors were peeking. Out from behind curtains, phones were pointed from every direction, and someone nearby whispered, "Is that really the FBI?" She lowered her gaze. This wasn't the way she wanted to be seen. Not as the girl who called the feds, not as some breaking news headline. She just wanted to feel safe again, to go home, to have someone, anyone, believe she didn't deserve. "What happened?" Her father's hand stayed on her back, steady and firm. "We'll talk more at the hospital," he said quietly. "I need them to check your wrist." She nodded, but her mind was spinning. Questions she couldn't ask yet, emotions she hadn't sorted out. But even as everything unfolded around her, one image stuck in her mind: Officer Branning slowly stepping backward, avoiding eye contact, sweat clinging to his temple. He looked scared, not guilty, scared. Why? A minute later, another vehicle pulled up. This time it wasn't federal, it was local. Out stepped Captain Reese, head of the city's precinct, and he looked like he'd just been yanked from a nightmare. His tie was crooked, face pale. "Director Pierce," Reese greeted stiffly, "we deeply regret what happened here today." "Save it," Pierce said flatly. "Your men assaulted an unarmed minor." "You'll answer for it?" Reese's jaw tightened. "I'm not here to argue. We'll cooperate fully." The words sounded right, but something about the way he said them didn't. Alana noticed it too. It wasn't just fear of her father's authority, it was like he was afraid of what might be discovered. She leaned toward her dad. "Something's not right," she whispered. He glanced at her, expression unreadable. "I know." As the officers were quietly escorted to the side for questioning, Alana and her father stepped aside with two agents and a medical team that had just arrived. They began checking her wrist, gently cleaning the wound on her forehead. But the sting of the antiseptic wasn't what bothered her, it was the weight of the moment. The feeling that this wasn't random. That maybe this stop wasn't a mistake. "I didn't do anything wrong," she murmured as a medic wrapped her hand. "I know," her father replied. "You don't have to prove that to me." "But why'd they stop me at all?" she asked, eyes scanning the scene. "I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't even jaywalking." He looked down, then away, as if the answer was too complicated to say out loud. Or maybe too simple. They might have been watching someone else, he said finally, though his voice didn't sound convinced. Or maybe it's what I feared for a long time. What's that? That no matter how powerful I am, some people still won't see you as anything but a threat. The truth of those words sank into her like ice, and it wasn't new. She'd felt it before: being followed in stores, teachers lowering expectations, security guards watching too closely. But this, being thrown to the pavement in her own neighborhood? This was different. Then something odd happened, as the federal agents gathered the officers' body cams and began reviewing footage. One of them stepped over to Director Pierce and handed him a small evidence bag. Inside was a torn piece of paper. Alana couldn't see it clearly, but her father's face shifted the moment he read it. "What is it?" she asked, sitting up straighter. He didn't answer right away, just stared at the note, then folded it carefully and slid it into his jacket. "Nothing we can talk about yet," he said. "But it confirms something I've suspected." Alana didn't push. Not yet, but a strange knot twisted in her stomach. All around them, reporters were now starting to arrive. News vans pulling up at the edge of the street. Lights, microphones, voices rising in excitement. But her father signaled to the agents, and before anyone could get close, they were ushered into one of the SUVs and driven away. Inside the car, Alana looked at her father. He was already on the phone, speaking in short, coded phrases. She wanted to ask questions, but something stopped her, because just a few blocks away out of view, away from the cameras and the crowd, a man in a plain hoodie sat parked in a nondescript sedan. He had been watching the whole thing from a distance. He tapped something on a burner phone, muttered, "We have a problem," and started the engine, and the look in his eyes. It wasn't just fear. It was preparation, like this wasn't over. Not even close. The SUV moved through the city streets in silence, except for the low hum of the engine and the occasional crackle of the police scanner in the front. Alana sat quietly in the back seat, her wrist now bandaged and her thoughts louder than anything. Outside the vehicle, her father was still on the phone, his voice low and tight, slipping between coded language and half-finished orders. Every so often, he glanced at her through the rearview mirror, not with pity, but with worry. Not just the kind a father has for his daughter, but the kind a man has when he knows something bigger is coming. Alana's mind was still spinning. The bruises on her arm throbbed, but it was nothing compared to the ache in her chest. What had started as a normal walk home had spiraled into something that didn't feel real. She wasn't just dealing with the shock of being manhandled by police officers. There was something else now. A deeper layer. The torn note her father had pocketed. The panic in that officer's eyes when her name was spoken. And now, the man in the hoodie she hadn't even seen yet, who had been watching everything from a distance. She turned to her father as he ended his call. "What aren't you telling me?" He hesitated. "Dad?" He sighed, rubbed his forehead, and finally said, "I can't share everything right now, Lana, but that stopped today. It wasn't random. Someone either gave an order or a tip. And that note in Branning's pocket. It wasn't something an officer just happens to carry." She frowned. "What was it?" "A printed photograph," he said after a pause. "Of you, with a date and timestamp?" Alana blinked. "Like surveillance?" He nodded. "Yes, someone was tracking your movements." The words hung in the air like thick smoke. Alana sat back in her seat, stunned. "But why? I'm nobody." "No, you're not," he said gently. "You're my daughter. That alone makes you a target to the wrong kind of people." "But the officers, they weren't just bad cops, were they?" "I don't think so," he said. "I think they were part of something else." As the SUV pulled into a private underground parking structure beneath a federal safe house, a second vehicle followed close behind. Inside that second car, 2 agents were transporting the body cams recovered from the scene. But as they drove, one of the agents noticed something. Oh. The footage from Officer Branning's camera didn't just show the altercation. It included several moments of him speaking on a private radio channel minutes before approaching Alana, a channel not registered to the local police department, encrypted. "Frequency," the agent said, "and not ours." That meant something serious. Someone had fed those officers information or orders from the outside. Someone who didn't want Alana walking home that day. And now that someone knew their plan had failed, back at the safe house, Alana tried to stay calm, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She was seated on a couch while a team of agents reviewed files on laptops nearby. Her father stepped into another room to speak with Homeland Security. The moment he was gone, a young agent named Maya sat beside her with a bottle of water. "I know this is a lot," Maya said softly. "Feels like too much," Alana admitted. Maya offered a kind smile. "You're brave. Most people would have frozen. You stayed focused enough to call your dad." "That probably saved you," Alana swallowed hard. But what if I hadn't? What if my phone was dead? What if I hadn't thought fast? Maya didn't answer. They both knew the answer already. As the hours passed, more threads began to unravel. Officer Jenkins, the quieter of the two cops involved, had requested a private conversation with federal agents. He claimed he didn't know what they were. Walking into that day that he'd received a briefing that morning saying a known subject was expected in that area, possibly carrying contraband. When shown Alana's photo, he turned pale. "I didn't know it was her," he kept repeating. "I thought it was someone else." But no one believed him completely. Because even if he wasn't the one in charge, he didn't stop what was happening. And the question remained, who gave that briefing and why? Meanwhile, miles away in a cramped apartment, the man in the hoodie pulled open a laptop. He was calm, methodical. Not law enforcement, not military, something else. He uploaded several files and sent them to a private server. Then he made another. "Call, she survived," he said to the person on the line. The old man showed up in person. There was silence, then a distorted voice replied, "We adjust. The plan isn't over, but they've got the footage. The body cams, everything. We expected that." "You want me to continue surveillance?" The voice answered flatly. "Watch her, and watch anyone who gets close." Back in the safe house, Alana sat alone, her eyes heavy but her thoughts still racing. Every minute revealed something darker. Her phone buzzed with messages from classmates and friends who had seen clips of the incident going viral online. Headlines were already forming: FBI director's daughter assaulted by police, teen beaten for resisting turns, out to be top official's child. And trending on social media was a new wave of anger and protest, but Alana wasn't focused on that. She was still stuck on one thing. She looked at her dad when he returned to the room. "What if they weren't after me, but you?" He stopped in his tracks. "I mean, maybe it wasn't about me being your daughter. Maybe it was about hurting you by getting to me." That thought hadn't been ruled out. In fact, it was now. One of the most active theories in the internal investigation, Director Pierce sat beside her, folding his hands tightly. That possibility is very real, which is why I'm not letting you out of sight, not until we know who's behind this." "But why now?" "Because 2 weeks ago," he said slowly, "we intercepted a flagged communication from a group we believed was defunct. A group known for targeting public officials and their families." She froze. "Are you saying this is some kind of revenge?" "I'm saying this might be the beginning of something we thought ended years ago." And just like that, Alana's life shifted again. This wasn't just about two cops, a sidewalk, and a bad decision. It was about something planned, something calculated, and someone who still hadn't shown their face.